ours used to be reading, writing, and arithmetic, but now they're really rehearsing a repertoire for this session. And that sounds like a strange title, but sometimes the question is, do we really know how to rehearse a piece of music that we're doing? Or we say, you know what, I taught this piece 5 years ago, I know how it goes. And then we get into the rehearsal and it's like, I forgot that this is element of changes in the music or something special along the way. But the more important thing is, the children you had 5 years ago are not the same as the children you have right now. So your approach may have to be drastically different depending on those young people that have been entrusted to your care. So in your handout, what I thought we might do is just talk about how do you make the things in your score come alive? And how do you study the music? Because I think if we really do that, it tells us our lesson plan. But it's one of those times when we think we know it, and we don't take the time to do it, and all of a sudden we miss it. And then we teach a phrase incorrectly to our students, and that's the way they remember it, always, for their lifetime. So if we had to look at things, I started my rehearsal score study many, many years ago when I was a student, and I would just put on a piece of paper the heading about the text, about the music, and then I would list everything I found along the way. And that was pretty good, but then when I started using colored pencils to highlight different things in the score, I thought, I have missed this, I have missed this, I have missed this along the way. And so I was privileged to study with Margaret Hillis, who conducted the Chicago Symphony course, and she had this very elaborate system of color coding her scores, including the orchestral score. So certain colors meant this, and every crescendo would be highlighted, every dynamic marking. And if you're doing for an orchestra, we're talking, you're going to have to do forte 20 to 25 or 30 times in a column in a row. And somebody said to her when we were studying together, well, can't you just mark it once? And she said, no, I need to know that it's going to be in every part, and by the time I've done that for every page of my score, I have it memorized. And then all of a sudden, when the composer has done something unique along the way, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like, forte, forte, forte. Oh, here, it's going to be quiet to undergird something, and we've caught something that we would have not found, we would have assumed it would have all been the same along the way. And so I thought, well, if Margaret Hillis, the great choral conductor, is doing this for the Chicago Symphony Chorus, I better get my act together and do it with all of my choirs, my adult choir, my children's choir, my young people's choir. And then I thought, gosh, it's working for them. I should mark all my piano and organ scores also. And all of a sudden we see things, they pop out to us. And then as we're conducting, we see those and they remind us immediately of what's going on. So I put at the bottom of your page, the first page, it says details, details, details. And this is kind of a simplification of what I learned from Margaret. But the first and foremost thing is I think you should go through your score and highlight the text and know that text inside and out. And you can use the highlighter to your benefit by making the highlighting continuous, except where you want them to have a breath. Stop the highlighter, and then start the new phrase. And already you're marking things in your score that you're going to communicate to your children. And then I chose, out of her 30 color system, I chose 5. And I carry them with me, literally, in a bag wherever I go. So I can mark whatever I'm doing at the time. But I used red, which is a hot color, for anything that was loud. So forte, fortissimo, mezzo forte, and for the crescendo symbol. Or if it said CRES period, I'd circle it in red. So all of those became the same. Blue being a cool color, was used for diminuendi and for softer dynamics. Green became the look for the key signatures, look for the time signatures when they change. And if they change, I marked every single one, and when they change back along the way. Then I used orange to highlight those special directions from arrangers and composers, like articulation, tempo changes, the initial tempo, the character of the piece. And what I found, that was my area, not of good score study early on, because I saw the tenuto marks, and I always got the staccato ones, but I didn't maybe always get everything else that the composer. And then when I started arranging and writing music, I was like, oh, I want people to follow what I'm doing along the way. And so I used the orange for that, and then I used the black color simply to mark phrases like 2 measures, and would kind of highlight where each one of them start. And all of a sudden, I knew the whole form of the piece. It's A, B, A, C, and then that's the A section, and then D, E, D, E is the B section, and this is just arbitrarily but being spoken. But the whole idea was I knew the piece really, really well. And then it sometimes helped me to find what I would call the hook. How am I going to hook my kids into this piece of music? I want them to love it from day one. It's maybe not going to be their favorite piece on day one, but I want them to want to keep coming back to it and to maybe allow it to become their favorite piece along the way. When doing the score study in terms of text and music, all of a sudden it became obvious to me. It popped out, and I didn't have to sit down, and use a formulaic approach. Well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I still write it all out. My plan is going to be, but the element of it came from the score study itself. So I put a couple box things there. So in terms of the music, I wanted to look at the source. I wanted to look at it in terms of melody and harmony, meter and rhythm, tonality and keyality, form and expression. All the things we would normally do, but do we always take time to do it along the way? And out of that was birthed in terms of source. I created a place in my room called the Composer's Corner. And I had to do some homework on some of the composers I knew nothing about, and I tried to find things that would tell me about when the piece was written or what the context it was for. I had the privilege of researching in Georgia, a person who owns all of the historic Bibles and Psalters. And I found several collections of Maurice Green. And I found out he wrote one of the pieces I actually edited for a foundling hospital. And so I just put those pictures I found, and then I don't really make a big deal. I might say some of the facts, and share them with the kids, but they're always there. And then the kids, if they come early to rehearsal, they're kind of snooping around in the composer's corner, or they might be snooping around in the theory corner, or they might be investigating another part in the room. And then, if it happened to be the composer's birthday, I would do a birthday cake for them. And in the birthday cake, I put all the important facts that I thought they would want to know. So for Bach's birthday, he was born on such and such a date. The father of 20 children, they go, oh my gosh. We go, oh my gosh, for 20 children. Composer of music for, and the elements he wrote for. And then I snuck into the icing the song that they knew the theme from. They had some Prepare Thyself Zion from the Christmas Oratorio. So the theme is there. And then I put a map of Germany in there and all of the cities where Bach would have worked or had an influence on people. And I put it up on the board. It's bigger. This had to fit in my suitcase and all of that kind of stuff. But then each child gets one of those to take home, a birthday cake. And sometimes, depending on what time of the year, if we had time, we'd actually have a physical birthday cake to celebrate. And sometimes it's important for them to know that composers are real live human beings, just like they are, and they would celebrate certain things in their life. It was interesting, even with my adult choir, one time I'd invited the composer to go out to lunch with whoever could go with us, with the adult choir. And one of my choir members said to the composer, I thought everybody we sang were dead. And what a lesson to me, to not be neglectful about those people who are sharing their gifts for us, in a compositional way. And also, if they are no longer with us, to help people make a connection with them. This real person lived during these times, and these were the conditions this person lived under. In our last session, we sang the little refrain, now thank we all our God with hearts, hands, and voices. Well, do you know who wrote that? Martin Burkhardt. And when did he write it? During the plague. And he wrote those words after his wife died of the plague. Now, can you imagine the faith of that man to write, "Now thank we God, all our God, with hearts, hands, and voices, who wondrous things hath done, in whom the world rejoices." And here his wife has died, and he's burying members of his congregation. What an example for all of us. Even though he's not living, he's still teaching us and modeling for us how we might live in the times of trial, in adversity, in times of death of loved ones. So in that way, they become real to us, and they have a message for us in addition to the music or the words that they are giving us. So to do that, and then as I'm looking at all of these elements, I was primarily an elementary music specialist when I started out my career, and every year I heard music is reading, composing, and all the elements, harmony, rhythm, and all of that. And if we use those things, we teach our kids as guides for analyzing our score. We'll know the attributes of the melody. Is this a conjunct melody? Is it a disjunct melody? Does it primarily move this way? And all of a sudden, we can teach that, or we can give clues. I'm a big believer in, as you're having your kids sight read a new anthem, give them at least 3 clues so that they can get at least 3 parts of the music correct when they're sight reading it, so they can feel good about, like, oh, I missed that part. I got this one and this one, but let's go back and let's see if we can get it again, on a second read through. In terms of text, I've put some things on your paper there. Again, finding out the source. What is the theme or subject of this? And in some cases, there's the overt theme, and then there's the underlying current theme. And that is particularly true for spirituals, because they often have a double meaning. And they were intended to be that way. Often, if we're going to the promised land, yeah, we can think about that as heaven, but the promised land was out of slavery, and often there were little codes in the music where here's a stopping point along the way that is safe for you when they're crossing the River Jordan. All of these images, and I think we need to share those stories with our kids, because again, we're learning about other peoples, other cultures, and ultimately in the United States, we're learning about our history. And we don't want to repeat history or certain parts of history again. So if we know our history, we can watch for signs of it. I know in the concentration camps in Germany, those who do not remember history will repeat it. It's right on the wall as you enter and leave, some of them, and how true. And so here's where we live. Know about where we live. I explained to another class, I had to learn about Detroit when I moved there, and how much racial divide was still present when I moved there 10 years ago. And I learned that there was even a street that was the dividing line. It's called 8 Mile Road, or Baseline. And on one side was the haves, and on the other side were the have-nots. And the have-nots were in the terms of economic and in terms of race. And you dare not cross those 2 lines. The dividing line still exists, although barriers are being broken down, but it's hard to break down those geographic barriers. I needed to know that. I couldn't figure out. I did 3 benefit concerts to start our fine arts program, to make people aware of what we're doing, and I needed to raise money and awareness to get it off the ground. I couldn't get the communities to sing together. If I went on this side, I got this community, and if I went on this side, I got that community. That's breaking down. It took the 4th concert and the installation of the bishop, where finally I got the communities to sing together. And it was kind of one of those strange things. We elected, as part of the Lutheran Church, our first African-American bishop for the southeast part of Michigan. And the black African-American community was so surprised when he asked me, a white person, to do that. But neither one of us we saw color, but we didn't see that as incompatible. And so just the very fact that he did that set some things in motion. from the communities. And so we need to know that as we are sharing our text with people. Do you know what the rhyme scheme is? Is there a rhyme scheme? And if you do, it makes it easier for you helping them to memorize the text by knowing what points they need to go. Are there poetic devices? And I love this, sometimes some poets have the gift of alliteration, and it's all the S sound going through it, or all the L sound. It's a big deal, and they should learn about poetic devices. Or is this poet using the whole notion of itemization? So for example, if we wanted to take a hymn text, for the beauty of the earth, it's a total item. For the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of the skies, for the love which from our birth, and we go through and we get this big comprehensive list. Well, my chart on the board when I'm helping them memorize it is from the, and a picture of whatever it is, and then the picture starts disappearing, and we have from the, and you have to fill in the blanks. But they've learned about the poetry or the prose of the text. When you look at those words, do any vowels or consonant sounds pop out to you? It's easy for the consonants if we're doing alliteration. But there are certain pieces that emphasize a certain vowel. I put them at the top of my list. If I'm going to be working with the ah vowel, I say, oh, this piece will come in handy to help them actualize that. Or here's a great piece for the oo vowel. Those are my two biggies. The O one people get pretty easily, but to get the lifted tall ah and to get the focused oo with the lips sending it out, I think are core for anybody, but particularly for children singing. So those kinds of things. And then what occasion was it written for? And what occasions do I want to do it for? Are they compatible with each other? Or am I just doing the piece because I like it? Well, I think you should like whatever you're going to do, but there should be more than that reason as part of it. So for me, those are all of the things that kind of shape what I'm going to do for that first rehearsal with them. What I've done, I've chosen 3 pieces that we're going to look at today. And I've given you my lesson plans, but you're not allowed to look at those right now. It's all written out for you, okay? But it's done according to about the text, blah, 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 blah. What I discovered, it's done about what I found out about the music, blah, 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 blah. And then on the basis of that, to try to create an initiating activity, to hook, so to speak, you into the experience. So today, and in my choir rehearsals, I have what I call the color of the day, which might be one of the vowel colors. And say, today, color du jour, we get real fancy about it, is going to be blue. So we'll be focusing on the blue vowel. But that is not, we're not going for color of the day right now. We're going for rhythm du jour. And rhythm du jour is this. And this, depending on your experience, you might say, oh, we've learned this in another piece we've done before, and we learned that it was syncopa, if we're using a certain language to interpret rhythm. Or it might be a new rhythm pattern. And you might say, I'm going to do it twice, and would you do it after me? And I'm going to use some unique words to do it. Syncopa, syncopa. Ready? And syncopa, syncopa. Could you do it with a little bit of a lift and breathe? Syncopa, syncopa. You know what? In our piece of music we're going to learn in a little bit, syncopa is all over the place. But it happens just like we did it, syncopa, syncopa, and then it has a rhythm we already know, or don't know, we could introduce it, but a rhythm that we already know is, we're going to go ta, ta, tiriti, ta, ta, tiriti, go, ta, ta, tiriti. And if you want to be jazzy about putting the whole thing together, syncopa, syncopa, ta, ta, tiriti, syncopa, syncopa, ta, ta, tiriti. Now, I learned a different counting system as a young person, but then when I was teaching, I learned Evan Gordon's syllables, and his first syllables kept numbers in, and I did it this way, syncopa, syncopa, 1, 2, 3 today, because it kept track of the beats in the measure with the numbers, and I really like that. But whatever system you're using, stick with it. Right now, in my school districts, they kind of use Kadai rhythm counting. So that's what I'm using in my program, because I don't want to mess them up with what they're learning in their school system. So let's go with the Kadai ones, and would you read again? Ready? And
Cinco, pa, ta, ta, ti.
And now, there's a piece of music in your packet. It's called Glory to God. And I'm wondering if you could look on that score on page number 4, and could you find somewhere where there are words written that has cinco, pa, ta, ti. You are now Detective Sleuths, okay? Sleuths, did anybody find a place?
Yes, 15 and 16.
Measure 15 and 16. Would you read, please, the words that go with this rhythm? Ready? And
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
good for you. Is there another place you might find this rhythm? 17. Go for it. Ready? And
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
do you see this rhythm anywhere else on page number 5? The sleuths are saying no, okay? Go to page number 6. Do you see this rhythm anywhere on page number 6? Measure number 31 and 32. How about reading it there?
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
Is there another place you might see it? 33 and 34. Ready? And
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
now we might say, it's so obvious. That's a big deal for the children to find it along the way. And you've got to be excited with them, you know, as the sleuths finding it all. Now, I'm wondering how observant you are. Go back to, you told me the first instance you found Glory to God was in measure number 15. Would you compare measure number 15 with measure number 17? There is something different between the two. Don't tell me what it is. Show me by the way you speak it. Okay? Ready? Here we go.
Glory to God in the highest heaven. Glory to God in the highest heaven.
Big deal. I didn't tell you soft and loud. I wanted you to find it. Okay, compare that with what you find in measure number 31 and in measure number 33. Okay, here's 31 altogether. 3, 4.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
Oh,
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
now, here's where the detective students have to really get down to business. Compare measure 33 to 31 in terms of where cinco, pa, ta, ti was put on the staff. And if you had to compare the placement, how would you describe it? Anybody?
33 is higher than
33 is higher than measure 31. Now, Detective Sleuths, compare the syncopas on measure 15 and measure 17 with the ones on page. Are any of them similar? Yes, and I know, it's, yeah, I'm not trying to be silly with you all, I know you get it, but I want to take you through the experience, because now they have some tools for sight reading the piece. Okay, and if we have to take a look at that melody in measure 15 that goes with syncopop, it looks to me like it kind of starts up here and somehow it ends up down here. And maybe you might just practice that together for right now. Cinco, pa, ta, ti.
Cinco, pa, ta, ti.
Good for you. Now, could you add the real words to it and sing?
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
And I did tell you a little fib before, blue is the color of the day. And we have a blue word in this first phrase. What is it? To. Okay, when you get there, glory to, oh, go for it big time, all right? 2, 3, 4.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
Just giving that focus in the middle of it changed the way you finish. Glory to God Puka. That's right there. One more time. 3, 4.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
And you know what? We're going to apply it to measure number 31, where we get to sing it a little bit lower. Glory to God. Ready? Sing now.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
And that's what we call transposition. The composer decided, I'm going to use the same melody twice, but one time I'm going to write it here, and one time I'm going to write it here. And they'll have that forever. Guess what? It's how they're going to learn about a fugue, because we often start in one key, new key, same first key, same second key along the way. So put that into their vocabulary. I think I've given you enough helpful parts for this. And in this case, because of the way the music comes to us, I would like to be voice 1 in our sight reading, and would you be voice 2 in our sight reading? And let us go back into the reading. And glory to God in the highest heaven.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
And peace.
And peace
To his people on earth.
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 And peace to the people on the earth. Oh, then we get a break. All right. Now we're going to that new key in measure 31. And this time we're all together. Ready?
Glory to God in the highest heaven. Glory to God in the highest heaven. And on earth peace.
Now that's my part, and we're going to harmonize. And I wouldn't have them read that. But it's there, and you have to treat that low register in a special way for them. In this case, I would sing their part with them, rather than my part of voice 1. And on earth peace, and on earth, you can stay in that register. Guess what? You don't get to move for the notes. You just have to keep track of the rhythm. But let's finish it off, starting at measure 42. Then, you know what? That was way too easy. Let's just divide into 2 groups and 2 parts. That way you'll really know if the people assigned to part 1 are sight reading and have got it in your head, because it was basically an echo thing to begin with. But I think this works really well as a first 2-part major anthem because of that antiphonal singing of the dialogue back and forth. I also like the piece because it brings the head or the light vocal mechanism into the lower range because of where it starts. Now, that might be our hook along the way, being the detective sleuths, finding it along the way. Now, I think you are really, really smart kids in my room. I want you to look at what the instruments are going to play on measure at the very beginning of the piece, on the very first page. And you see anything that they're playing that looks rhythmically like what you were singing before. And you might say, measure 1 has syncopa in it, but measure 2 does not have ta, ta, tiri, ti. But if we look at it, oh, the composer decided to decorate ta, ta, tiri, ti, all the way along the. And so it makes them aware of what they're listening to, that the composer is hinting at what they're going to sing. If we looked at the melody for those instruments, it's right there. Along the way. So they're getting clues to what they're going to be singing along the way. And the detective says, now we've got to do some work on how are we going to perform it in subsequent rehearsals. Sometimes if we look at the way people will sing Latin, they will use it according to Germanic usage, or to the Austrian-Hungarian usage, or to Roman usage. I prefer Roman because of the way it shapes the vowels. O's are never O's. They're more A-W. And so I like that because it doesn't put the R in for Gloria, but it becomes Glo. Oh, it's really hard to get that R to come in. And I like to use it for the word glory also. And it becomes glory to God in the highest heaven. And it makes then our line more north-south in the vocal. Glory to God in the highest heaven. All the way through, and I put it in the wrong key, but you understand the principle. So I work with that along the way. And sometimes when we get those fast-moving melismas like heaven, put them on your person, or make them air notes. Glory to God in the highest heaven. And I let them go up like this, and all of a sudden you get a diminuendo in their singing, and it becomes very musical. Let's get in the right key. And would you sing that and do whatever helps you with your body? 2, 3, 4.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
And you all got off at the right time too. Now we weren't all so good on glory yet. So I would like you to get rid of the GL. And when you sing, Audi, Audi, ready, and go.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
Let's put the G back on. Glory without the L. 3, 4.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
Just a little flick of the tongue for the L. Glory and 3, 4.
Glory to God in the highest heaven.
We fixed all of it just by taking it and putting it into little component parts along the way. One other thing we might take a look at, and we're going to sight read it one more time in 2 parts. When we get to measure number 19, you did it beautifully when I was being voice 1 and you echoed me. But we have that vowel sound that likes to go this direction. Peace. And the more we go down, the wider our lips go that way. But what I would like you to do, would you sing, peace, and would you put your fingers here to keep your lips from moving out in that direction. 2, 3.
Peace.
Now we're going to combat gravity, wanting to pull us down too low in pitch. And while you're doing this, peace. Ready?
Peace.
Oh my gosh! All the intervals were exactly right. And sometimes we just need a reminder of the direction and the kind of voice we want to put there. Now, can we add one more element? We caught consonant sounds this morning. Peace. And put it in your hand. 2, 3.
Peace.
Oh, beautiful. And if you want it shorter, flick it on the side or grab it. And peace. Any of them, it's all a gesture. Ultimately, they can't sing it that way in rehearsal. But guess what? As their conductor, here's me conducting. Peace. I could do the great big cut up. It doesn't mean anything to them. But they know what it feels like in their person to do it, and the power of suggesting that by the visual reminder along the way. So, now, Detective Sleuth, you're very smart, and you know your whole notes, you know your half notes, you know your eighth notes, and you know your 16th notes. I would like you to tell me, since we've been working with the word peace along the way, starting in measure number 25, how long am I going to hang on to peace for? 6.5. Oh, we got fractions even involved. Good for you. Yeah. And now, but it means when we are singing, we're actually going to have to count to 7 before we move to incorporate that half of the fraction. So it might be peace to people on the I'd like you just to speak it right now, and you are responsible for keeping track of the numbers. 1, 2, go. And peace to people on the earth. And yeah, now notice what the composer and the arranger has done in terms of dynamic there. And peace, what are you going to do if you're even speaking it for those dynamics? 1, 2, go.
And peace to people on the earth.
Sometimes I think we don't do enough speaking to get rhythms going, and we're so worried about the notes that then rhythm doesn't happen along the way because we can't line up the words and the notes. Okay, you are a two-part choir now of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 5 on a part will be just A-okay. And how about joining us in our standing up position for right now? Ideally, I would never play with my back to the children, but it's the way it's going to be. It's going to be the way. Please don't throw things at me. Oh, that would be. Thank you for asking. Well, who thinks they could be on voice number 1, which means however you sing it, they're going to sing it back to you on voice number 2. Takers for voice number 1. Raise your hand. 1, 2. Need 3 more. Need 3 more. 3. 2 more. We're down to 2. Okay, you're all close together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay. Oh, I missed coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we'll let 6 of you be the 5. Close enough. All right. And, to make sure that they hear you and see what it feels like, would you kind of face them a little bit, and they're going to face you for your singing. So, we know that as soon as the pianist starts playing, the music is in motion. And to make our ears work better, we're going to turn the page to where we start singing, rather than looking like this. Go. And turn the page. I'll do it. where you just took the text and you weren't really thinking about necessarily the meaning of the text along the way. But it was too cheerful. I learned it, as inflammatus, inflame, as they didn't fit. The interesting thing is he only lived for 26 years. And look at what he wrote. An incredible piece. This is the first piece I ever wrote for children. And so it's special to me, and they became their favorite during the year because they were singing something of the past that they didn't know that they could do. And that he was less than 26 years old when he wrote this piece of music. And says, I could write a piece as a 10-year-old, as a 12-year-old, along the way. So, all of those notes about rehearsing it and all of that are written in your handout along the way. So read it and then you can say, oh, but he didn't do this. Good. Can't do it all, but it's there for you, for the analysis. And now I'm wondering if we could become, of sorts, people who worked with the Morse code along the way. And some kids say, what is Morse code? And then my tech and my other techie, or people who like interesting things will say, oh, it's a system of dots and dashes, and it was a system of giving messages, hither and yon. And so, for our Morse code experience today, and I don't see an eraser here, so it works just as well. And I'm wondering if we could do Morse code like this. Let me just put a little dividing line in here. Long. Okay, and we're going to read our Morse code with our voices. Okay? Good for you. Now, to expedite the process because of our time today, look in your handout on page, it's at the top of the page after from all that well. It'll say learning opportunities at the top and an initial experience. Can you find that somewhere? And you're going to see the Morse code written out there for you. But I have my children learn A and B under an initial experience where the Morse code is, and one of them is on the board. But then I changed it, and I did the part. But did you notice that in saving time here, I did a shortcut. Initially, I put 4 of them in a row. And then I crossed this one out, and that became the 8th rest along the way. And the other one was long, short, long, short. That is the rhythmic basis of this whole piece. And it was a way I could get them to shift between 5/8 and 6/8 along the way. And they had fun doing it. And eventually, we changed the Morse code notation to this. And they could see what it looked like. And it was away from them to going from something that looked like the sounds they were making, in other words, a shorter duration sound with a longer, to now, how would we translate that into musical notation along the way? So, take out your music from all that dwell below the skies. Oh, yours has got a different cover. Mine has a tree on the front. Okay, I learn something new every day. Using your system of Morse code, wherever you see the 8th notes, would you do the short sound? If you see a quarter note, do a longer sound. And they're often marked by a tenuto mark to help you along the way. And if if you have a half note, you know it's going to be double the quarter note, okay? So ready, and. Double duty. Okay, would you do the Morse code sounds, and I'm going to speak the words and see if I can get them to fit what you do. Ready? Here we go, and from all levels of the skies, let the Creator's praise arise. Let the Redeemer's name be sung through every land by every tongue. Okay, I get to be the Morse code. You read the words. Ready? Here we go, and
From all that dwell below the sky, let the Creator's praise arise. Let the Redeemer's name be sung through every land by every tongue.
good for you. And all of a sudden, that's a major accomplishment of doing that. And your kids will take great pride in it also. I'm going to ask you just please to sight read now the melody that's there since you know the rhythm. And we'll do it with text. And here's our key. You can finish the rest of it. But here's your little vamp. It's just in another key. Hold on, wait. Okay, set the stage. Seating posture for sight reading. Of course, tall and. If I were doing that with my children, I would have done the Morse code just like you did. I would have only taken us through the first stanza and then said, do you see any other places where these rhythms occur? And then sing them because the melody changes at different points. But basically it's an A, modified A, B for the hymn, and then back to a modified A for the ending. That all comes from the score study. And so, an example, I have all of those things marked as you would say, and then what I do is section 1 equals 3 measures plus 3 measures plus 3 measures plus 4, so I know the length of my conducting for each one, and ultimately we'll have it memorized to conduct. I think sometimes if we spend time looking into our scores too frequently, we miss what's going on or not going on in the room. And somebody said to me a week ago, do you always conduct by memory? Oh, yes, is the answer. If I'm doubtful of some of the text, if I have to give special words along the way, I have them in big print somewhere next to me. We did A Lenten Love Song by Helen Kemp. It's one of her, I think it's her greatest piece. And we were doing Maundy Thursday worship as a model in this particular conference. And the different verses that happen, and they all start the same. Now Jesus went into the Garden of Gethsemane. The first time, he went there sad and very weary, alone to pray. The second time, now Jesus went into the Garden of Gethsemane, exactly the same. Third sentence, the olive tree bent over him. And there's a part in between, and we would always revert back to the beginning. And so the day we were going to share it in worship, when the kids said, oh, and they gave me a tree branch. And when it came time for that phrase, the tree branch appeared. They knew the olive tree bent over him and heard him sadly pray. And then went to the other part of it. And so they took ownership in a very creative way for remembering the text. I will always hold an olive branch, or a branch of whatever we can find in the woods at that time of year to remind them of those words. For this particular piece, I think as I'm teaching it, I would just say, I would one time just do a read-through all the way through after you've done enough preliminary work with the Morse code, understanding rhythm and the text, and then to say, how would you compare what happens on page number 5, the bottom, with what happens before it, and what happens at the end of the piece. And if they've sung this hymn in your church, they might say, well, this is something we've sung before in church. But they may not know this text to it, although sometimes they are associated together, but they may know, I know that my Redeemer lives, an Easter text to it, or Jesus shall reign where'er the sun. Great connection for them to make that. It's a melody that they already know or have heard in the past. If they had to describe that melody in terms of how does it compare to the melody before, it's certainly not as jazzy. It becomes very square. Did you notice that the meter stays the same for the whole section? That's a miracle because it didn't at all in the other sections. So now they have something to hang on to. And it might be the place where even though they're singing at a fairly quick tempo, that they sing more legato and create, let every creature, oh, there's that arch along the way. It's going to go all the way. That's an octave ascent and then coming down halfway. What if, as you were singing it, and what if, as they were singing it, you might add a gesture? Let every creature, and let your hand go over that. What would happen to our sound? Here we go. And let every creature rise and sing. Boy, that was a different phrase than we did before. And just that visual and just that movement shows the connectivity or connection of the line, but also where we want to go on the top. Now, if we had to compare it to the next one, praise and thanksgiving. Oh, we don't have the great big arch this time. Oh, but the tune is not going to let us get away with not another big arch. Angels descending. Oh, and it happens a rather quick gesture. Would you do that, angels descending? And angels descending, songs on. Here it comes again. And every beat and sometimes what I do is after the phrase comes down at the end, I let the hand keep coming up. So we keep the energy going and we don't let the pitch flat along the way. So maybe in this case, doing a whole new system of pulsing it, because guess what? You do the rhythm now for the words, and takes a lot of breath and energy to make it happen, and you already knew that's what it's going to take. So another maybe hook to bring your choir into it. We have one more example along the way. Does somebody have a watch, and how are you doing on time?
It's 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay. I made reference to this earlier in one of the classes, I don't know which one. Yonder come day. And when we originally learned it, we did not put scores in hand at all. And the task was, okay, I am going to sing Yonder Come Day a number of times. Tell me how many times I sing it, okay? And this is what I did. Yonder come day. yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, in my soul. And how many times did you hear yonder come day? 6, okay? You're responsible for 6. I'll take oh my soul and in my soul. Ready? Here we go. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, in my soul. And then I said, oh, you should sing oh my and in my soul with me. And we did it that way. Challenge to see if they knew their part. Okay, you're going to sing that part, okay? I'm going to sing a different part. And my goal is I'm going to get right into your face and sing something else, okay? And it's not a shouting competition, just stay on your parts, okay? Ready, here we go. Yonder come day, yonder comes the breaking, yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder comes the breaking, yonder comes the day in my soul. Good for you. I couldn't mess up anybody. We didn't have a chance to do you, but I'll get you the next time along the way. Okay? And then we might, on another day, let's learn the first part, the part I was singing, okay? And we're going to connect yonder come day, and a little crescendo there, and a little dip. First stop. 2, 3. Yonder come day, day is a breaking. Yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, day is a breaking. Sun is a rising in my soul. And then I divided the group into 2 to see if they could each hang on to one of the 2 parts, and I put 2 of them together. The next rehearsal was Crocodile Day. Yonder, 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 oh my soul. Go for it, ready? And you can be crocodiles if that's helpful to you. Ready? And yonder, 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 oh my soul. Yonder, 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 my soul. And you should hear how all 3 of them fit together, and then I have to let you go, okay? For the first time through, we'll all sing the main melody, which is part 1 in your score, yonder come day. Then we'll all sing, I think it says sing melody number 2, and then we're going to put melody number 2 with that desk hand, okay? So for that one, if you like singing high, go for the yonder that we just did. If you'd rather sing low, go for that other one, okay? And then the last time through, we add the main melody again. I'll keep the main melody for this go-around for our read-through. So, very beginning and looking like this. I use this for Martin Luther King Day, looking forward to tune, or on All Saints Sunday. That's clever. Ready, here we go. Yonder come day, day is a breaking. Yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, day is a breaking. Sun is a rising in my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, in my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, in my soul. One more time. Yonder come day, yonder comes the breaking. Yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder comes the breaking. Yonder comes the breaking in my soul. Their first a cappella 3-part piece. Thank you for sharing this time together. Blessings on all your ministry and rehearsals with children. Thank you.